What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about Ghost of Yotei, give you all my 10-hour impressions. I managed to hit that number, and after this video, I'm going to put in a whole lot more, try to maybe double it by the end of today. No, that'd be pretty difficult. Look, the game is phenomenal, and I gotta be real, okay? I've been talking about this game, obviously, so much. I made so many videos, and I replayed Ghost of Tsushima like a month ago, right? And it really set the bar high, right? It got me thinking, all right, Tsushima was so good, and Yotei looks good, but, can it really reach it? And not just reach it, but with all these systems that are maybe close to the same or just improvements, how much better can it really be? Now, my optimism was quite high. You can go watch those videos, right, to see that. The game has blown me away so far. Now, I'm 10 hours in, right? I mean, to complete this game from the estimates I'm seeing, and I'm going for the platinum, right? It's going to be a 35 to 50 hour game. So I'm like a third, maybe, of the way through. But I cannot believe how good it is and how much I like it. And I genuinely, from the heart, in almost every single way, it's better than Ghost of Tsushima. And that is something I didn't necessarily expect. We had heard about these improvements of the open world and that there's more side things to do and that you will do them less times, right? The diversity type thing. Let me give you some examples. Let's start there because that's something that has also blown me away. So I've done approximately 4 fox dens, which if you remember Ghost of Tsushima, you do 40, right? I've done 4 of them so far. And just to give you a small example of how this game does it, one of them led me directly to a shrine, okay? Pretty simple. And that's what Ghost of Tsushima did, right? Every time it did that. But then there was another time that a fox led me to a hole. And I was like, oh, this is weird. There was a person trapped down there, and it triggered this in-game cutscene where they talked about that the fox actually led them to some sort of treasure, and it was nighttime, and they tripped and fell in the hole, and they've just been stuck there. So now you, as Atsu, has to help the person out, and then that person leads you to the shrine. So it's a small example, but it's a perfect example to me of they're taking things that used to be just, you follow the fox to the shrine. That's it, right? One straight line, and that's all you do. Now, number one, you do it far less. Another thing is camps, right? In Ghost of Tsushima, while fighting is so good, and it's elite here as well, you fight so many camps, and you liberate. Well, there's liberation, kind of the big zones, right? And then there's the smaller ones. In Ghost of Yotei, I believe from the trophy, there's 22 in the entire game, and those are the big ones, and that's all there are. So it's just less is more. You're doing it less. But to the fox thing, right? It's taking a premise and it's just adding one extra thing, something to spicing it up just a little bit, right? In one of the bamboo strikes, the foxes will cheer you on. They're next to you. In another bamboo strike, you actually need to do it to get a mask to then enter this bar. And by the way, very Sly Cooper-esque. If you remember Sly Cooper 2, you need the tuxedo in order to enter the dance, to dance with Carmelita. It's the exact same thing here, actually. You have to walk in with a demon mask on you. In order to get the demon mask, you have to cut the bamboo. Now, I actually just cut the bamboo because I saw it, and I said, oh, this is cool, right? So I did it, and then they will actually leave you a mask on a chair for completing the bamboo strike. You need that mask to do this side thing. So that's the depth, and it's everywhere. Every single thing has that depth. The shrines, actually getting up to the shrines, it's more intricate now. It's not going to take you 5 seconds. It might take you a couple minutes, and it is deep, the amount of platforming, basically, that you have to do to get from, the ground to all the way to the top of the shrine. That is what I love about this game, is it takes things that are, and because you might be asking, right? Well, it's the same thing, Alex. No, it's not. It really is adding one extra layer, 2 extra layers, and almost perfecting it. I don't like to throw around the word perfect. If you notice that, I say things are masterpieces or amazing. I don't like to say perfect because, what actually is perfect? But it takes established ideas and makes them as good as humanly possible. That's what this game, I think, does to much of Ghost of Tsushima. Now, it's not all as good, at least right now. The story is actually quite good. I think it's still, I really love the story of Tsushima. I've seen some split split on it, but I personally really loved it. I love Jin's journey. Atsu is different. Atsu I do actually really like. I like that she's kind of unapologetically herself. Like she's out for blood. She's out to kill those Yotei 6, and she doesn't care what moral line she crosses over. It's what she's there to do. And that, it adds a little bit of simplicity, because Jin was always, and I've seen people kind of criticize that about Jin. I think that added layers to him, but it's not like Atsu has no layers. Like she has a little bit of comedy to her. I actually really like the flashbacks with her. I think she has a lot of spunk as like the young girl. I think she actually has a lot of charisma there. I'm not a huge fan of I don't know if it's the same actress that plays her when she's just a little kid, but I'm not a huge fan of the acting, but I really like the character. I think Atsu is a young girl, and Atsu is an adult, but she's got a lot of spunk as a kid. As an adult, she has this kind of sarcastic edge to her, but she also is, she's very serious, and she's out for blood, and it's really just, it's that. And there is something kind of special to that, right? But I would say, in terms of story and characters, and I would say characters plural, that's where Yotei hasn't quite reached Ghost of Tsushima. But my big worry was that it was going to completely fail. It wasn't even going to get close. What I'm here to tell you in this video, at least so far, when I say it's not as good, don't take that to mean it's terrible. What I mean is it is very good. It's just not as good as Ghost of Tsushima. But everything else is amazing. The combat is, I would say it's heavier. That would be kind of my description of it. When they're striking you and you do a block or a parry, and the way that they kind of almost stumble off of that parry. Now, they did that in Tsushima, but there feels like there's a weight to it. And your controller, they do some amazing things with a DualSense controller in this game. From the fire to you paint with the controller. It's incredible. But when you clash swords, you actually hear the scraping of swords through your controller. And now that's cool. But also, you actually kind of feel it. Like when you're blocking a sword and the sword kind of slices your sword, they kind of slow down. Does that make sense? It feels real. It feels heavy. It feels like they're coming at you with a hard, and I'm a martial artist. I've actually used the sword in real life. When you're striking, you have that intent to slice, right? And then when you hit an object, there's kind of this sliding, kind of heavy, resistance thing that you get. The game really captures that every time. And I'm shocked at that. And I think that's kind of that. Hopefully I described it well, but that's the weight. That's kind of what I'm seeing in the combat. It is very similar. The combat's very similar, but I think it's a more refined version. And as of now, I only have the single sword and the dual katanas. And let me tell you something about those dual swords. They are so much fun. I love how quick it is, and also how brutal. I think it's more brutal because you're striking them just more statistically. I think it's so cool, so much fun. So the combat is awesome. One thing I also really want to highlight, I started with the side stuff. I really want to highlight to you the open world. So you might say, okay, well, Assassin's Creed did this, right? Everybody leading into this game, there was the concern too. It's well, Assassin's Creed just did this. Let me tell you something, all right? I am a person that likes to be handheld, okay? I like question marks on my map. Now, not too many. Sometimes it can get overbearing. But I like direction. I like to kind of be told, okay, if you go here, you're going to see this. Now, this game doesn't do that. But I told you that story because I have fallen in love 110% with what this game does. So let me try to explain it. This game, in my opinion, does open world exploration better than almost any game because it puts you in a zone. Now there's 5 regions. I'm halfway through region 2, okay? It looks like region 4 is pretty small, but region 3 looks pretty big. Region 5 looks pretty big. 1, I think, is probably the biggest one of the group. So you're in a zone, and they try to use these visual cues as much as possible, right? And it's smoke. So you're going to see smoke. Now, there's, of course, the wind, and there's, of course, the birds that you see flying, right? You follow them. They'll lead you somewhere. But it's mainly go around and just discover things. And this is where I think that discoverability works so well with the diversity of this game. Again, you're not going to be doing the same thing 1,000 times. There's a couple side missions in each zone, and the side missions freaking rock. They have depth to them, right? There's not 80 bamboo strikes. There's not 80 fox dens. There's not 80 camps to take out. There's a couple of each. There's some duels here and there, right? There's always depth. And again, even when you find a fox den, there's more to it. But the way that this game opens up to you, I think is wonderful. Like, I'll just be going around and I'll see somebody with a torch. Like, you'll see fire and it'll be like, okay, I think that's mainly zone 2. And it's like, wait, something's happening there. I saw a house on fire in zone 2 and I just went there and it was something that happened. Now, I don't want to spoil it. I don't think it gave me anything in terms of a reward. It wasn't really a side quest. It was kind of just a random thing that happens in the world that had like a small little story. And I'm actually discovering that there's oftentimes I'll do something and there'll be no reward and I'll think, wow, they didn't give me anything. And then I'll also think, you don't have to give me anything because the experience was the reward. The game gives you rewards, doing the shrines, you're going to get those ability points. I've done like the wolf den, so my wolf is a little bit more powered up now. I'm more powered up now, as Atsu. So and that's the beauty of this game is they do have things that beef you up, that level you up. They have that diversity where you're not doing the same thing every time, but like everything feels fresh. That's the biggest thing I think I can stress to you, okay? 10 hours in, I've done some things more than once, and it has not gotten old a single bit. Now, yeah, I still have 20, 25, 30 hours to go, but the way that, again, the game opens up, and, I start by just looking for the smoke. I say, okay, there's something over there, I'm just going to go over there. It might be a watchtower. It might be a fox den. It might be a side mission. It might be somebody coming after a settler, right? One of the Lord Saito's men, and then all of a sudden you have to save them, and then maybe they give you a map, and the map is going to tell you where a hot spring is or where a shrine is, and you kind of slowly fill out that world, and now all of a sudden your map is full of just the things that you've done. It just feels so natural. You feel, that's, I think, the best way of, and maybe not the best way, but that's the best way I can say it, is that's how the world feels. You kind of slowly open it up, and before long, I mean, where I'm at, zone 1 is like 99% done. Like, I've done and I've covered every inch of that land because I just wanted to find everything that there is because nothing was boring. I just kept going, and I was concerned, worried. I was skeptical, maybe. Like, I just didn't know, okay, it's this open world, you can kind of choose what you want to do. Am I gonna be into that as much as maybe even other people are gonna? I think other people can probably get into it more than I got into it immediately. Okay, maybe it took me like 10 minutes, to kind of get the hang of it, but very quickly you realize just go out, just have fun, and there are, things to do. I can pick the missions, that I want to do, but, the main missions have so much depth. The side missions have far more depth than you think they might have. And there's just so many fun things to explore. And like I said, maybe like 20% of them don't even give you anything. It's just the experience of doing it that is the fun part. And I freaking love that. Lord Saito, I just mentioned him with his men. The villains in this game, there's some depth there too. I don't want to spoil it, but very early on, because you think, okay, it's just a revenge story. And they even said that, Nate Fox said, well, it starts as a revenge story, but it gets maybe a little bit more deep than that. Well, I'll tell you, within the first hour, without spoiling what happens, within the first hour, you immediately start to sense that there is more going on. You start to sense, oh, okay, this Lord Saito, who's the leader of the Yotei 6, there's something to him. Like, you can start to figure out, like, where he came from and what he's done and what he's doing, and just a little bit more depth than simply, okay, he walks up and he kills your family one day. Like, that's not why he did it, right? There's more to it, and that immediately, again, it is a revenge tale, but it adds, just in the very beginning, a little bit of depth to it. And then just the way that they, like every one of the Yotei 6 kind of has their thing that they're doing. And it's very Sly Cooper-esque, by the way, like the Fiendish 5 aside. You think about like Sly 2 or Sly 3, you enter a zone, right? And that leader really has, like, you think about Sly 2 with like Dimitri in the opening level, right? He has that zone. Like, that's his zone. And all you're doing in that zone is sabotaging. using and reconnaissance, and you're trying to figure out how do we take this guy out and how do we take the piece of clockwork that he's using, how do we get that back, right? I mean, that's the basic plot, and you do that every time, right? And that's kind of, you can see it. You can see the Sly influence, I think, all the way through. That's what you're doing here, is there's zones, there's people that kind of control the zones, and you're building that story of the person who controls the zone. Like the Oni is the one that I'm going after first, right? He's kind of in zone 2, and it's a build-up, and he has that zone, and it's a build-up of story, but then also it's all of these things that you kind of fill in to fill out the world, you know? So I love it. I really love this game. It is immediately, I think, in my top 5 of the year. Honestly, it's maybe my second or third favorite game of the year, and I'm only 10 hours in. And it's again, to me, it is far better. I thought it was going to be good, okay? I did. I thought it was going to be a good game. It is far better than I thought it was going to be. So I'm very, very pleased with it, and talking about it makes me immediately, after being done here, I want to go play it for the next, 7 hours. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.